Shalom, shalom, peace, peace, and blessings. Welcome to the Fourth Angels Learning Center. My name is Jadiel, and today we have I don't know, I'm a little excited today because I think we found the missing link as to understanding the timing of Passover. So I think one of the main misunderstandings, which we're going to cover in this video, is what does it mean by the evening, right? So what does it mean by the evening or even, right? It's the same Hebrew word, areb. So what we're going to do is we're going to be investigating to see if scripture gives us the details, and then we're going to look at the diagram. We have a diagram where we went over in the 12-hour video that we did. We go over this diagram on how to actually track the sun and how they track the sun in 12 points, which is where we get the phrase, there's 12 hours in a day, because there's 12 points in which the sun is tracked to tell you what hour of the day that it is. So I'm excited. I believe that this is the missing link that everybody is kind of not talking about. So I want to make sure that we understand this point very clearly, and so that way we could apply it to the counting of the Passover. This also helps us in regards to the counting of when a day starts and things like that. So we'll clearly see, just from the example of Passover, how the day structure is. How is the day cycle structured? Okay. So before we get into it, I want to remind everybody, if you have not subscribed already, please click subscribe, click the notification bell for more videos, more content. Also, please feel free to give us a contact us and just give us more insight as to what topics you want us to cover. There's so many things floating around on the internet. I don't really want to base these videos or answer these questions based off of that. But if you guys send in these questions, then we will address those questions. All right. One of the biggest things that you guys could do for this ministry is share the video, especially if it's enlightened you or blessed you in any way. Please allow it to bless and enlighten other people as you share the video. Okay. So we are going to be talking about, what does the word evening mean? What does the word evening mean? So I'm going to pull up the scriptures now. And we're going to start from Exodus 12. All right. We're going to start from Exodus chapter 12. This is the beginning when Passover is instituted. This is when Passover was commanded by Yah to Moses while they were still in Egypt. They were in the process of the Exodus, basically. So in verse 5 and 6, he tells them, he says, go get a lamb without blemish, male of the first year, take it from the sheep or from the goats. It says, you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. They shall kill it in the evening. Now, the Hebrew word for evening here, and we're going to just show the correlation between the Hebrew words, because this is definitely necessary. Okay. Hebrew word, according to the Strongs, is areb, right? Areb, ayin, resh, and bet. Areb. It means dusk. The root word comes from arab, which means to grow dark, or to grow dusky, or move towards darkening. Okay, so it's darkened, right? Darkening. I just want to show the consistency of this term, right? So it says that on the 14th at evening, here in Exodus chapter 12. In Leviticus 23, where it talks about the feasts, we're going to look at verse 4. It says, these are the feasts of yahuah, holy convocations, which you shall proclaim in their seasons. And then it says, in the 14th day of the first month. And then it says it again, at even. Very important. Very important. It shortens it, but the ing is simply referring to the moving. It's a verb. It's moving towards dark. Okay, it is not dark, it is moving. It is dusk or dusky, moving towards the darkness. Okay, that means the sun is going down. But this term is very important for us to understand because Yah is being very specific as to when these things has to occur. The 14th at evening. So we saw this in Exodus 12. We see this now in Leviticus 23. Let's do another one. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 16, and we're going to see that it says the same exact reference for the same exact timing. Okay, so it says, observe the month of Abib, keep the Passover unto Yahuah your Elohim. For in the month of Abib, Yah your Elohim brought you forth out of Egypt by night. This is going to show a difference between night and growing to darkness, going towards night, or growing darker. Let's continue to read this. It says, you shall therefore sacrifice the Passover unto Yah your Elohim of the flocks of the herd in the place that Yah shall choose to place his name there. It says, there shall no leavened bread be eaten with it 7 days. You shall eat unleavened bread with it, even the bread of affliction, for you came out of Egypt, out of the land of Egypt in haste, that you may remember the day that you came forth out of the land of Egypt, all the days of your life. It says, and there shall no leavened bread be seen with you in all the coast for 7 days. Neither shall there anything of the flesh, which you sacrifice the first day at, look at what it says, at even, remain all night until the morning. It says, you may not sacrifice the Passover within your gates, which is Yah your Elohim. So it's interesting how it's talking about the 7 days of unleavened bread, and look at what it does. It incorporates the sacrifice of the Pesach, the Passover. It considers the Passover to be connected to the 7 days of unleavened bread. Not only the 7 days of unleavened bread, but it makes a very specific claim in verse 3. It says here, verse 4, it says here, which you sacrificed the first day. So it says, there shall no leavened bread seen with you in all your coasts for 7 days, neither shall anything of the flesh which you sacrificed the first day at even. So notice that it's incorporating the first day. But we know that the first day is not the first day of unleavened bread, according to many. It says that the first day is the 14th, which we know it is the 14th, but even is a specific time period that we're gonna kind of break this down. It's a transition time period. So it's not necessarily not the 14th, but technically it's a transition into another day. So if the 14th at even is referred to as the first day of this 7 day of unleavened bread, and Feast of Unleavened Bread starts on the 15th, that means that they're connecting or combining the end or transition period of the 14th with the 15th day of the month. But anyway, it says here at even. Okay, let's look at verse 6. It says, at the place which Yah your Elohim shall choose to place his name in, there you shall sacrifice the Passover at even. And then it gives you this reference, at the going down of the sun. Many people refer to this as night, but it's not talking about night. It's a totally different point of the day. It's the last portion of the day, and we're going to look at that. It says, at the season which you came forth out of Egypt. So we see Exodus talking about kill it in the evening of the 14th. We see Leviticus 23 being very specific, saying the even of the 14th. And now we see Deuteronomy 6:16 telling us that it was at the evening that it had to be killed. Okay, so with that being said, what time is the evening? What time is the evening? Okay. I want to also focus on other elements that had to be performed at even, so we can get a clear view as to what time of the day is even, because they had to have an understanding. They had to have something in their mind to know exactly when to actually execute this command. Even was supposedly the name of a time period of the day. And we're going to see what time period that is. Let's go to Luke. Let's go to Luke. Luke chapter. Let's go to Acts chapter 3, right? So Acts chapter 3, look at this interesting phrase, right? So it says, now Peter and John went up into the temple at the hour of prayer. And then it says it was the 9th hour. So the hour of prayer was also referred to as the 9th hour, and it says at the temple. So there was something special going on at the 9th hour, that the people of Yah would gather at the temple during the 9th hour. Luke gives us a little bit more insight as to what was going on. And it says here in Luke chapter 1, and look at what it says here, verse 9 to 11. It says, according to the custom of the priest office, his lot was to burn incense when he went into the temple of Yahuwah. This is Zechariah. He was in the priest office of the family of Abiah, and it was his turn to go in at that time when the angel came to him. So he went in to burn the incense at the temple. Look at what it says in verse 10. It says the whole multitude of the people were praying outside at the time of the incense. Now we know that the time of prayer was the 9th hour. So it says here that apparently it was also the time that the incense was lit. But let's go back to see when Yah told Moses when he told Moses to light the incense, so we can get a clear timing as to what the 9th hour means, or what's another term for the 9th hour of the day. Now, let me make this clear. The 9th hour of the day, it's 3 to 4 hours before sunset. 3 to 4 hours before sunset is what we refer to as the 9th hour, according to the sun, tracking the sun during the day. Let's look at this diagram. All right, so look, so when the sun comes at the horizon, it goes up to midday, which is the 6th hour, and then it goes down to the 9th hour here, which is a 45-degree angle of the west. I believe it rises in the east, sets in the west. And then from this point on, the 9th hour, there's 3 to 4 hours between this 9th hour and sunset, the 12th hour. This time period is referred to as even. It begins here in the 9th hour and it ends here at sunset. But I want to point out more instances. So how is the 9th hour the same as evening, right? How is the 9th hour the same as evening? We just saw that the incense was the same as the 9th hour. We saw that the hour of prayer was the 9th hour. So we're going to see in the Torah how even is the same as the 9th hour. So let me pull up the scriptures. Let's go to Exodus. Let's go to Exodus chapter 30. This is the chapter of the altar of incense. Okay. Now there was a command to light the altar of incense 2 times during the day. It says here in verse 7, Aaron shall burn sweet incense every morning. He shall dress the lamps, and he shall burn the incense upon it. And when Aaron lights the lamps at even, it says, this Hebrew word is the same Hebrew word that we see it in the command to kill the Passover. It is the Hebrew word arab. Let's look at that. H6153. It is arab, right? Or arab. Let's get back to it. Verse 8. So they light the incense every morning, and they light the incense at even. Remember what it said about in the book of Luke, that the multitude was praying during the time of the incense. And Acts chapter 3 says that the hour of prayer was the 9th hour. The 9th hour is even. This is when even begins. Okay? Let me show you the diagram one more time before we get a little bit more detail about the sacrifices now. The 9th hour is the hour of prayer. it is the time that the priest begins as lighting the incense. And we are going to see that it is also the time of the evening sacrifice, which is the 9th hour. We're going to see that multiple people in the scriptures, David, Solomon, multiple people in the scriptures understood this timing. They understood that the 9th hour was referred to as even. Okay, so let me pull up the scriptures. So we see clearly Exodus 30 tells us that the incense that we saw in Luke chapter 1 was burnt every morning and burnt in the hour of prayer every even. Let's see what else was done in the morning and the evening. Exodus 29, looking at verse, let's see, verse 39. Let's look at this. It says, verse 38, it says, now this which you shall offer upon the altar, 2 lambs of the first year, every day, day by day, continually. 1 lamb you shall offer in the morning, and the other you shall offer at even. Not only was there incense in the morning and evening, there was also prayer in the morning and evening, and there were also a sacrifice in the morning and evening. Now, there's no times given in these instructions, so there had to be an understanding on how to track the sun. They all must have understood what part of the day would be even. It would be the 9th hour, okay? According to Acts chapter 3, verse 1, it is the 9th hour, which is the time of the incense, according to Luke chapter 1, verse 9 to 11. And that term incense, or that time of the incense, or that time of the sacrifice, and that time of prayer was referred to as the 9th hour. The 9th hour begins the evening, meaning that the transition time period from the day into the night. Let's continue to look at this. This means, if you look at verse 41, it says, the other lamb you shall offer at even, and shall thereto do according to the grain offering of the morning, according to the drink thereof, and the sweet offering made by fire unto yahuah. So it says here, even. Whenever you see the term even, there's an understanding that during the day, there's a certain time period which is referred to as the evening. Evening, meaning like it's moving, it's transitioning. So when it says to kill the Passover on the 14th at evening, that one is very important for us to grasp what part of the day this occurred. Because of this, many people are unaware that there was a transition into a new date of the month, which is the first day of unleavened bread. Let's look at this. This is why they considered the 14th at evening to be also combined with the 7 days of unleavened bread. Instead of making the 14th its own celebratory day, they combined it with the 15th. Why? Let me show you. Exodus 12, it says, the whole assembly killed the Passover in the evening. They took the blood, put it on the doorpost, upper doorpost, where they will eat it. And it says, and they shall eat the flesh in that night. So they kill it in the evening time, which is around the 9th hour. And from the 9th hour to the 12th hour, they are preparing. The 12th hour is sunset. By sunset, it will be night. And this is the time that they would be eating. The interesting thing is, the time that they would be eating would be referred to as the first day of unleavened bread. Let me show you. The time that they would be eating would be considered the first day of unleavened bread. It says, now the feast of unleavened bread drew nigh, which is called the Passover. It is called the Passover. Let's go back to Exodus. Exodus 12, this night that they ate the lamb is the night that they left. Numbers chapter 33, verse 3, tells us very clearly that they departed from Ramses in the first month on the 15th day of the month, the morrow after, or the time period after the Passover. The children of Israel went out on a high hand in the sight of all the Egyptians. The 15th. I think what a lot of times people get confused because they look at this term morrow and they think it's a whole 24 hours. They think it's a whole 24 hours when the word morrow just simply means the next day or the next time period. Yom is not an exclusive 24-hour thing. So next time frame. So if we're looking at, let's go back to this diagram. I want to make this very clear. So the 14th day at even, right? This is when it was killed. They prepared it, they took the blood, they put it on the doorpost, and then it says, and you shall eat it that night. This sunset time period is going into a new date. So the 14th to the 15th, okay? The 15th begins at night. Hear me out. We already saw that Numbers 33:3 said that they left at night. We already saw that Deuteronomy 16:1 said that they left at night. Exodus 12 also tells us that they left at night. So what's being said is that if the night is here, this is when they killed the Passover, right? And they went through the whole night until the 15th day in the morning. Then they went through this whole day to leave at night of the 15th. This is incorrect. It was not that long. That's a whole 24-hour period. They did not have enough time. They couldn't stay that long in Egypt. They were actually thrusted out. And we're going to look at that. So the evening is the 9th hour. We're going to look at more examples of the evening also. Let's look at a few more examples before we come back to this Passover. Evening is a term that was very familiar in keeping time. There was a transition period at the 9th hour going into the sunset that everyone was familiar with it. It was how they told time. It was how they indicated how long they would work, etc., etc. So let's look at, I'm trying to see whether we should clarify the Passover. Let's look at the Passover first. Okay, so back to Exodus 12. It talks about them leaving, right? It says, I will pass through the land of Egypt this night. What night? The night that they're eating it. Let's read this. It says, thus shall you eat it with your loins girded, shoes on your feet, staff in your hand. You shall eat it quickly. It is Yah's Passover. I will pass through the land of Egypt this night. So he's passing through the land of Egypt the same night that they were eating. The same night that they were eating, right? They killed the Passover on the 14th at even, the end of the day, transitioning into night. So this night, they were eating, and Yah said he will pass over that night. Let's continue to look at this, right? Let's go further down. Look at what it says here. Exodus 29, and I'm going to stop to show you the diagram. It said it came to pass that at midnight. So let's look at what midnight looks like. So they were eating it here at this part of the night. He passed over around midnight, this part of the night right here. This is when Yah passed over Israel in the land of Egypt, and this is when that last plague was poured out. Okay, so it came to pass that at midnight Yah smote all the firstborn of the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on the throne, unto the firstborn of the captive in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of the cattle. Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants, all Egypt, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. So he called Moses and Aaron by night and said, get up, get you forth from among my people, both you and the children of Israel. Go serve Yah as you have said. Okay? So look at what it says here in verse 33. It says the Egyptians were urgent upon the people that they might send them out of the land in haste. They said, we are all dead men. It says the people took their dough before it was leavened. So if they had 24 hours or they had 12 hours, it would not, they would have more than enough time. Look what it says. Before it was able to be leavened, their kneading troughs being bound in their clothes and their shoulders, they took all the jewels from the Egyptians. It says here, and then it says, and the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Sukkot. Remember what we read? We read in Numbers 33:3 that they left on the 15th day of the month. So this night was commencing the 15th day, the first day of unleavened bread, which is why they had unleavened cakes. It says they baked unleavened cakes with their dough, which they brought forth out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, because they were thrust out of Egypt. And look, this is very important. They could not tarry, meaning they could not linger in Egypt. Neither had they prepared for themselves any food. If they had 24 hours, they would have been able to prepare themselves food. They would have been able to leaven the bread. They would have been able to do a lot of things. They didn't have any type of time. They had to leave right away that same night. Let's continue. It says, it came to pass that at the end of the 430 years, even the self-same day, it came to pass that all the hosts of Yahuah went out of the land of Egypt. And look what it says in verse 42. It is a night to be much observed unto Yahuah for bringing them out of the land of Egypt. This is that night of Yahuah to be observed of all the children of Israel. Okay? Very, very simple. What night was that? Numbers 33:3. It says it was the 15th day of the month at night after the Passover. Was it nighttime? According to Exodus and Deuteronomy, it says Elohim brought thee forth out of Egypt by night. Let's look at this one more time. This is the diaphragm. The 14th day at evening is when they killed the Passover. Verse 6 of Exodus 12. It says in Exodus 8 that they were supposed to eat it that night. That night, Yah was going to pass over them, that midnight. It says that the plague passed over them. Everyone woke up and they kicked them out of Egypt that night, probably right here. They kicked them out of Egypt that night. They did not have enough time to even leaven their bread or make any food. They had to leave that night. Numbers 33:3 says this is the 15th day of the month. This was the first day of unleavened bread. This was the day after the Passover was killed right here at even. This is how you tell the time. This also tells us that the day starts at night. Not the daytime, but the cycle of a day begins at sunset, because we clearly see Passover was killed here at even on the 14th, and the 15th began here at night. And this is also the same night that the plague poured out. And this is also the same night that they left Egypt, according to Numbers 33:3. This night was the 15th day of the month. Meaning that during the day, that would have been the 15th day of the month, the daytime portion of the 15th day. So, just to emphasize a little bit more that they knew and understood these time periods of the day, let's look at a few verses just to clarify and just to have in our mind that they knew what even was, they knew what midday was, midnight, they knew all these terms. This is why it's in the scriptures, because they understood what these things meant. So when they wrote it, the Israelites that read it knew what time of the period, what time of the day it was. Now, many nations used a sundial to tell time. So it's not an exclusive term that only Israel will use. This is a time that many nations used a sundial. It wasn't until later on that people started numbering time, calculating time. So look at this number. 1 Kings chapter 18. This is the time of Elijah. When Elijah went to Mount Carmel, look at what was going on, right? Elijah went up to Mount Carmel. We're going to start at verse 25. It says here, and Elijah said unto the prophets of Baal, choose you one bullock for yourselves, dress it, for you are many, call upon the name of your gods, but put no fire on it. It says they took the bullock that was given to them and they dressed it and they called the name. It says here, they called the name of Baal from the morning until noon. And we're going to see what noon meant. From the morning until noon. Is that dawn? No. Morning is a specific time of the day as well. You have to understand these times. Morning is the third hour of the day. The third hour of the day is referred to as morning. This was also the time when the morning sacrifice was made. This is the end of the morning, right? So the end of the morning is the third hour. The beginning of evening is the ninth hour, and noon or midday is the sixth hour. I hope that this is, helping out a little bit on understanding the time, because there's a lot of these references used throughout Scripture, even in the New Testament. Messiah died on the ninth hour. He was put on the tree on the third hour. It was dark while he was on the tree from the sixth hour to the ninth hour. So it's interesting to understand what time periods these things are occurring, so that we will know why it's such an important thing to mention. So it says here that the prophets of Baal had to basically call to their gods from the morning to noon, right? It says, but there was no voice and nobody answered, right? And it came to pass that at noon, right? So when noon came, Elijah started to mock them. And he said, cry louder, for he is Elohim. Maybe he's talking, or maybe he's going after something, or maybe he's on a journey. Maybe he's sleeping and he needs to be woken up, right? And they cried aloud and they cut themselves after the manner with knives and lancet till the blood was gushing out. Now watch this. It came to pass, in verse 29, when midday was past, they prophesied until the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice. What time was that? The ninth hour. That there was neither voice nor any of the answers to call on them. Let's go down to verse 36. Look at what it says. It came to pass at the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, Elijah the prophet came, and he said, meaning he started to pray. This is the hour of prayer. He started to pray during the hour of prayer, during the time of the incense, during the time of this offering. As we read in Exodus 30 and 29, it says, Yah Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known this day that you are Elohim in Israel, and that I am your servant, and that I have done all these things at your word. It says, hear me, O yahuah, hear me, that this people may know that you are Yahuwah Elohim, and that you have turned their heart back again. Then the fire of Yahuwah fell, consumed the burnt sacrifice, and the wood and the stones and the dust licked up the water that was in the trench. When all the people saw it, they fell on their faces and they said, Yahuwah, he is Elohim, Yahuwah, he is Elohim. So he knew. He let them go on from the morning sacrifice all the way to the evening sacrifice. And when the evening sacrifice came, it was a special time of prayer. It was the time of the offering. And what he did was he set up the offering, and then he offered up a prayer. And Yah heard his prayer at the evening sacrifice. This is the ninth hour of the day. This was not sunset, pitch black outside. No, this is evening time. Psalms chapter 141, we're going to see that David even understood these time frames. He used these time frames and referenced them, connecting them to both incense and sacrifices, as we mentioned before. Look at verse 2. It says, let my prayer, right, the hour of prayer, be set before you as the incense, right, just like we read in Luke chapter 1, about the time of the incense was also the time that the whole congregation was praying. So it says, let my prayer be set forth before you as incense, and the lifting up of my hands as the evening sacrifice. So we see the evening sacrifice was done at even, the incense was burned at even, and the time of prayer was at even, which is all referred to as the 9th hour. Let's look at more. Let's look at Solomon. Let's look at Solomon. You know, he was rebuilding the temple, not rebuilding, but building it for the first time. 1 Kings chapter 3, we're going to read verse 3 to 5. Look at what it says. Solomon loved yahuah, walking in the statutes of David his father, only he sacrificed burnt offerings in the high places. Not in the high places, let me explain that. So he did not sacrifice burnt offerings in the high places to other Elohim. They just did not have any location. They did not have any temple, so they would do it on a high mountain. It says the king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, so that was the great high place. 1,000 burnt offerings Solomon offered unto the altar. In Gibeon, Yah appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and Elohim asked him, "What shall I give you?" Right. So here we see him going up to the sacrifice, the time of the sacrifice, and he's offering up sacrifices and incense. Sacrifice and incense. The reason why they're mentioning it is because it was supposed to be executed at even, as we read in Exodus 30 and Exodus 29. Okay, Exodus 29 tells you that the evening sacrifice and the morning, the evening sacrifice is done at even, and Exodus 30 tells us that the incense was burnt at even. So this is referring to the 9th hour, and this is also the time that yahuah appeared to Solomon in a dream, and he begins communicating to Solomon. Okay. So with that being said, just to conclude, what is even? Even is the 9th hour. Even is the time of the incense. Even is the time of the evening sacrifice. It is also referred to as the hour of prayer. And we know that because this is what the prophets demonstrated. This is what the kings demonstrated. And this is also what was occurring in the New Testament, which is why, praise Yah, we were able to get an actual time, an actual timing. Now, I do have a video talking about the timing of the Passover, and this, I believe this will help in understanding that video. So when you look at that video, you'll see that Messiah ate the Passover, but he died during the day. So he ate the Passover on the night of the 15th, but he died during the day of the 15th. I also have a video which deals with the conflict with John chapter 18 in regards of the Passovers that the priests, Caiaphas and the priests, wanted to eat on that day. So I may do another video centered around that, just so that way we can see that the Israelites have understood this way of doing. And we're going to look at this in another video to break down that Messiah ate the Passover, but also the Passover that the priest was eating was something on the daytime, during the daytime. It was very significant that Messiah would die during the daytime. And we're going to talk about that in the next video. So I hope that understanding the evening helped us to understand when the Passover was killed. It gave us a time, and we were allowed to understand at what point of the day did that time begin. And this was the 9th hour. So I hope that this was clear. And if it wasn't clear, please reveal to us what scripture was used incorrectly, what part of this explanation and this breakdown was not accurate, and please give us some insight as to what was incorrect about this explanation. And we would love to hear from you guys. Okay, look forward to the next study. Shalom, everyone. Shalom, shalom. Thank you guys for joining our study today. I hope that it was edifying. And if you want to support this ministry, you can support us on 4alc.com. And don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube page. Click the like button and the notification bell. I hope to see you guys on the next study. Shalom, guys.